Okay, let's do this. So you're probably looking at the title right now thinking, Blooms, people have already made South Park Iceberg videos and I've seen them, so why would I watch this one? And of course, not to discredit those videos, those are great videos. Shout out to Book of Alice and Johnny Something. However, this Iceberg is different. It was made exclusively for this video, as I contacted the user Astria on Reddit after seeing their previous 2 South Park Icebergs, and I proposed the idea to make one all-encompassing iceberg for this video. She happily agreed and began working along with 13 other people who consider themselves South Park historians over at the South Park Historical Society on Twitter to complete this project. So yeah, this iceberg goes deeper than anyone ever asked it to. To put it in perspective, I would consider myself very well versed in the South Park fandom. You know, I have a YouTube channel basically based on South Park, and there are things in the 3rd tier that I had never even heard of before. So even if you've watched every other South Park Iceberg on YouTube and are an expert on South Park, I still recommend you watch this entire video, as I can almost guarantee that you will learn something new from this video. Of course, none of this would have been possible without the help of Astria and the South Park Historical Society, as, you know, they made the iceberg and basically peer-reviewed my research for all the points, so a massive shout out to them. Go follow South Park Historical Society on Twitter and tell them how awesome this iceberg came out. And one more thing, if you enjoy the video, please go ahead and drop a like or subscribe. It's up to you, you don't have to, but I would greatly appreciate it. So, with the intro out of the way, let's do this. The ultimate comprehensive South Park iceberg. Unprotected internet? I don't remember doing any research on this. What is this? Oh, I remember now. This is actually a segue for today's sponsor, Private Internet Access VPN. Private Internet Access is a VPN app for almost any device, including Windows, Mac, iOS, Android, Linux, and many more. VPN stands for Virtual Private Network, and it works by changing your IP address and rerouting it through an encrypted tunnel, therefore hiding your online activity from your internet service provider, network administrator, government censors, or really just anyone trying to snoop around in your info. Is there a show or movie that you love that's not available on your streaming services due to where you're located? Well, I have great news. With Private Internet Access, you can simply set your location to somewhere it is available, and just like that, you're watching your favorite shows and movies. Private Internet Access is the most customizable VPN on the market, providing you with tons of different options to make your VPN experience truly your own. They're also the most transparent VPN provider with over 30 million downloads. One thing that I like a lot is that they have a no logs policy, meaning that they don't record or store any of their users' data, and it's been proven several times in court. They promise a 30-day money-back guarantee, so you can try it out completely risk-free. And if you use my link, which will be in the top of the description, you'll have access to complete digital privacy for less than $2 a month, as well as 4 extra months for free. So what are you waiting for? Go click the first link in the description and sign up right now, risk-free, and start protecting yourself when browsing the web. And another huge thank you to Private Internet Access for sponsoring this video. Casa Bonita refers to the Mexican restaurant of the same name that is Cartman's favorite restaurant. There's an entire episode of South Park surrounding the horrible things Cartman is willing to do in order to go there, and it is actually a real restaurant in Colorado. In summer of 2021, a rumor began that Matt and Trey, the creators of South Park, actually planned on buying Casa Bonita. Later that year, they actually did end up purchasing the restaurant, so I guess we'll see what exactly they plan to do with it. In the episode 200, the show hinted at showing the Muslim prophet Muhammad in the next episode. Upon hearing this, radical Muslim group Revolution Muslim warned that Matt and Trey would be murdered if Muhammad was shown. Because of this, Comedy Central heavily censored the episode 201, censoring the use of the word Muhammad, any images of Muhammad, and even censoring Kyle's entire speech at the end of the episode about the effectiveness of terrorism. We will talk more about this later in the iceberg. South Park Flash games refers to games that are South Park themed, that were made in Flash and other programs that were then published to the South Park Studios website. When these games were originally uploaded to South Park Studios, the original creators were not credited at first, so that was a big issue, obviously. Nowadays, it's a lot harder to find the games since Flash has been removed from most browsers, but you can still find them archived on some specific websites. Also known as visitors, the South Park aliens appeared and abducted Cartman in the pilot episode. Since then, they can be seen hidden in the background of many other episodes. It was actually rumored at first that they appeared in every episode, but this isn't actually true, it's only in some episodes. The Stuck in 4th Grade blog was a blog that was started on Tumblr by the South Park storyboard team. They would release many updates and behind-the-scenes pictures from a lot of the episodes. It's an interesting thing to look at, but it hasn't been updated since 2019, so I don't think they're really doing it anymore. After the release of the episode Cartoon Wars Part 1, in which the show made fun of Family Guy a lot, The Simpsons actually sent flowers over to the South Park studios, since they also dislike Family Guy. This resulted in Bart making an appearance in the next episode. The team over at the show King of the Hill also made a statement saying that South Park was, quote, doing God's work. Because of this, King of the Hill was also referenced in the next episode. The season 19 episode Tweak X Craig focuses a lot on the topic of yaoi, which is a Japanese art form known to depict two men in a romantic setting. For the art in the episode, they asked the fans to send them their Tweak and Craig yaoi to be used in the episode. So basically, all of the art that you see in the episode of Tweak and Craig is fan art. Interestingly, a lot of the artists and animators who work on the show were also a part of the fandom prior to joining the South Park studios, as many of them have stated this on their Tumblrs. This is why during the production of The Fractured But Whole, there was an entire wall in the office dedicated to fan art, because a lot of the artists and animators were already decorating their cubicles with art they liked that they found, so then they just decided to devote an entire wall to it. Spirit of Christmas refers to the two animated Christmas specials Matt and Trey made. They're known as the precursors to South Park, and after the first one, Jesus vs. Frosty, was passed around Hollywood, it fell into the hands of Brian Graydon, a Fox executive. He paid Matt and Trey to make another one that he could use as a Christmas card to send to his friends. After this special went viral before the internet was popular, Matt and Trey pitched the idea for a show to a few different networks and were eventually picked up by Comedy Central. In the episode Grounded Vindaloop, Stan removes a VR headset to reveal a live-action version of All of the Boys. This implies that the entirety of the show up to this point all took place inside of a video game.
It's pretty cool, but the graphics suck.
Originally, the episode Cartman Sucks actually had a completely different plot of Butters going to multiple places to cure his homosexuality rather than being grounded at the camp. Because of this, there are reportedly deleted scenes and promo pictures from that original episode that exist out there. I actually have an entire video dedicated to this topic on my channel, so you can go check that out if you're interested. But Kyle's possible removal was discussed during both Season 4 and 5 because Trey and Matt felt that he was too similar to Stan. He was originally going to move away during Season 4, and they even made a press release announcing that someone was going to go away. This progressed to possibly killing him off until Trey and Matt came to the conclusion that it makes sense for Stan and Kyle to be similar because they're best friends. At the time, they still wanted to make sure Butters was a main character though, so they decided to kill off Kenny instead because at this point they had gotten tired of the gag of him dying over and over. In 2020, South Park had a large event in which they had fans vote on who their favorite character was. They did it once in 2015 and Randy won back then. However, this time in 2020, Cartman won, but Tweak was actually named MVP of the tournament.
That is way too much pressure!
In the unaired pilot of South Park, there's a shot where you can see Cartman's family, including a sister and a father. The scene was removed because the creators actually believed that Cartman didn't really need a big family, so they just got rid of him. Kick a Ginger Day refers to a real-life movement that designated November 20th as National Kick a Ginger Day, inspired by Cartman's hatred of gingers in the episode Ginger Kids. Reportedly, there were some real-life instances of gingers being kicked on this day. However, other than those few isolated incidents, there doesn't really seem to be much of a market for a Kick a Ginger Day. This refers to a kind of genius ad campaign started by the creators of the show called #CancelSouthPark. Basically, they were poking fun at cancel culture, attempting to get their own show canceled as a marketing stunt. At the 2000 Oscars, Trey Parker was nominated for an Oscar for the song Blame Canada from Bigger, Longer, and Uncut. This meant that Matt and Trey were going to the Oscars, so of course, they decided to wear dresses that were modeled directly after dresses that Gwyneth Paltrow and Jennifer Lopez were wearing to the Oscars that year. They also had the ingenious idea to drop acid right before entering the Oscars, and you can even notice if you look closely in some of their interviews that they are clearly tripping. Say what you want about Matt and Trey, but they were pioneers in the fight against toxic masculinity. Block 13 refers to a very bizarre knockoff South Park that was created in the country of Kuwait. It features characters that are directly paralleling South Park's characters, and it is just very strange. YouTuber VailSkiBum94 actually made a pretty good video on it, so go check that out if you're interested. When it comes to birthdays, there are some confirmed birthdays for the characters, such as Stan on October 19th, Kyle on May 26th, Kenny on March 22nd, Eric on July 1st, Butters on September 11th, Clyde on April 10th, and Randy on March 1st. However, there are some references to some old South Park archives from 2009 in which they detail the birthdays of Randy, Sharon, Gerald, Sheila, Ike, and Shelly, but it's very hard to find these original birthdays as most of it is removed now, but you can still find some of them on Google. This refers to a South Park game that was in the early stages of development that was basically a clone of The Simpsons Hit and Run. It was found on a developer's edition of an original Xbox. For whatever reason though, the game was never finished. I think it's kind of ironic because, as General Disarray would say,
Did it.
this is in reference to an image that was presumably taken in the writer's room of The Fractured But Whole, in which it showcases a chart that describes the relationships and traits of each of the 13 main characters in the game. It's actually very in-depth, and it shows all the relationship dynamics between each of the characters. I mentioned earlier in the Iceberg that at the end of the episode 201, Kyle's speech is completely censored. Now, when the episode released, no one actually knew if this was supposed to be some kind of meta joke, or if he had actually said something. Well, in 2014, it was leaked to the internet after someone had found a glitch in the South Park Studios website that had the speech uncensored. The speech actually ends up being a very sarcastic commentary on censorship and the effectiveness of violence, claiming that the way you get people to do what you want is by threatening them with violence.
It was because of the magical power of threatening people with violence. That's obviously the only true power. If there's anything we've all learned, it's that terrorizing people works.
Basically, it was revealed that there were a bunch of lines that had been recorded for The Fractured But Whole, but never ended up being used in the actual game. There are a lot of characters that have lines that weren't used, and I'm not going to go into depth on each one, but you can check them out if you're interested. Cheesy Poofs are an iconic staple in the show. They're Cartman's favorite snack, and they are clearly a parody of Cheetos. They were released twice in real life though, once in 1998 directly from the South Park website, and then again in 2011 where they partnered with Frito-Lay to release repackaged Cheeto Puffs for San Diego Comic-Con, and they were available for a limited time in Walmart stores across the nation. They didn't include the extremely catchy theme song though, unfortunately.
I love Cheesy Poofs, you love Cheesy Poofs. If we didn't eat Cheesy Poofs, we'd be
Lame.
In the early 2000s, there was a lot of speculation over the political leanings of Matt Stone and Trey Parker, and this led to, in 2001, writer Andrew Sullivan detailing his own political theory on the show and why he believes they're Republicans. Then later in 2005, writer Brian C. Anderson wrote an entire book in which he followed up on Sullivan's theories and went more into depth on them. The first mention from Matt and Trey was in 2001 on the South Park forums, in which they detail the fact that they are in fact very middle ground in that they hate both conservatives and liberals, with Matt Stone famously commenting, "I hate conservatives, but I really f***ing hate liberals." Speculation continued in 2018 after a tweet from Larry Elder, who claimed that Matt and Trey said that they were Republicans after receiving a Freedom Award from Norman Lear's organization. However, I think it's pretty clear to anyone that has watched the more recent seasons of South Park that they're definitely not Republicans and they're just as middle ground as they've always been. The very first gentleman refers to the original name given to the episode OGs that aired in season 20. In the 2016 election, Matt and Trey were pretty confident that Hillary Clinton was going to win. Because of this, they had the episode completely written before the election was over. However, as we all know, Trump ended up winning and they had to rewrite the entire episode the night before it was meant to air. I personally believe that this is a big factor into why season 20 ended up not being so great. In season 1's An Elephant Makes Love to a Pig, when Shelly is repeatedly assaulting Stan, it randomly cuts to Stan with a puddle of water under him with no explanation. This is because there was an original scene where Shelly repeatedly lit Stan on fire and put him out with water. This was removed in fear of another Beavis and Butthead style controversy in which a 5-year-old boy lit his house on fire and killed his 2-year-old sister, mimicking what he saw in Beavis and Butthead. Though it was removed, it was leaked and it can be found on YouTube. Dr. Timothy is Timmy's superhero alter ego in The Fractured But Whole, and he has telepathic abilities and is clearly a parody of Professor X. He was originally meant to be a playable character in the game, but for whatever reason this was cut from the final version, making him the only main character that isn't playable. There are a couple episodes that have deleted endings that were eventually revealed to the world. For example, in the episode The List, instead of burning the list and never knowing who was actually at the bottom of it, it's revealed that Cartman was at the bottom of the list and it shows him sitting with the ugly kids. In a slightly more well-known example, at the end of Fish Sticks, Kanye West goes on to live a happy life in the ocean as a gay fish. However, the deleted ending of the episode shows the Coast Guard recovering Kanye's swollen dead body. The gender of Cartman's cat, Mr. Kitty, has been up for debate for a long time, as its name is Mr. Kitty, but in the episode Cat Orgy, it can be seen in heat, which is something only female cats can do, but then again, in the episode Major Boobage, it's been shown to spray, which is something that only male cats can do. It was eventually revealed in the FAQ section of South Park Studios that Mr. Kitty is in fact a hermaphrodite, meaning it has both female and male parts. In the PBS kids show Arthur, there's an episode called The Contest in which there's a scene that parodies South Park directly, including the distinct animation style, high-pitched voices, and even the aliens that are trademarked to the pilot episode of South Park. Continuing with the theme of kids shows parodying an adult cartoon, in Powerpuff Girls, there's a quick reference to South Park when Blossom falls into a pile of clothes and comes out wearing Cartman's trademark outfit, and even including a nod to Cartman's old favorite word.
You tripped me, seriously.
So apparently the people that made this iceberg are complete bigots since they wrote Token instead of Tolkien. You are part of the problem. Anyways, in season 1, there are 2 episodes that feature a character that looks exactly like Tolkien, but he's white. No one knows where he came from or where he went, but he can be clearly seen in episodes 4 and 2 of season 1. The real South Park refers to an ad created by the Dutch version of Comedy Central, in which they create a short live-action version of a South Park episode. However, when I was researching for this iceberg, I thought this was in reference to the real town of South Park, so I'm going to talk about that for a second. South Park is in fact a real place in Colorado. It's a town called Fairplay, and it's obviously in the south of Park County, Colorado. It has some tourist attractions and gift shops that reference the show, but in reality it's really just a small town, but I thought that was interesting. In 1998, the show Mad TV, which is like a sketch comedy show, did a parody of South Park. It featured South Park style animation with the characters all replaced with the cast of Peanuts. It includes references to both South Park and Charlie Brown. It's very bizarre, but it's also pretty funny. Robin Williams was actually a huge fan of South Park. He even performed the song Blame Canada at the 1999 Oscars, which is the song that South Park was nominated for. He was also later portrayed as a hologram in the episode Happy Holograms. This is in reference to a special compilation of 12 episodes that focus primarily on Cartman, including some of my personal favorites. It's a DVD box that you can buy on Amazon, and it's sort of designed as a collector's thing. The episodes included are Scott Tenorman Must Die, Awesomeo, The Death of Eric Cartman, Cartoon Wars 1 and 2, Les Petites Tourettes, Tonsil Trouble, Eka Penis, Cartman Land, Up the Down Steroids, Super Fun Time, and Ginger Kids. In an old interview, when asked which child is most likely to be gay, Trey Parker said that Stan is actually the most likely to be gay since he's, quote, more sensitive and more in touch with love than anyone else is. Obviously, this is from a super old interview, so it doesn't really line up with the current canon, but they also asked another question that we will get to a lot deeper in this iceberg. This is in reference to a South Park themed platformer that was developed for the Game Boy Color. Days before it was meant to be sent to Nintendo, however, Matt and Trey discussed how they'd be releasing a game meant for an adults to a console that's largely targeted at children, and they decided to scrap it. The game was later reprogrammed and re-released as Maya the Bee in Europe and The New Adventures of Mary, Kate, and Ashley in the United States. The original game can actually still be played, however, as it was posted to a Lost Media Discord server after a user communicated with the lead developer for months. Peter Charles is actually PC Principal's real name. It was first revealed in the episode Board Girls when it can be seen in a news report. It was again referenced in the newest season, season 25, and this time it was a lot more obvious. This one's actually a really funny story. So there's an employee working on the EA game Tiger Woods PGA 99, and he somehow managed to sneak a copy of Jesus vs. Santa onto the disc, which is the original South Park Christmas card that I mentioned earlier. This was as a result of a lack of knowledge for how creating dummy files to fill the disk space worked. So basically, anyone that owned this copy of the game could put it into their computer and open up the file and watch it. Obviously, this was a very big issue as the game was rated E for everyone, so EA ended up having to pull the game from the shelves and re-release a version that didn't include it. Matt and Trey are actually big fans of the LA Kings hockey team. Because of this, throughout the 2000s and 2010s, they made many shorts for the Kings that would be played at the opening of their home games. Mostly it was always Cartman confronting the opposing team mascot, which was sometimes Kenny, and killing it in some way. In the game South Park Rally, which was basically a clone of Mario Kart, if you look in the game files, you can find portraits of Chicken Lover and Miss Crabtree, implying that they were meant to be playable characters at one point, but were scrapped. Okay, this one gets into some dark conspiracy theory stuff, so you've been warned. At this point, it's pretty well known that after suffering from a stroke and being incapacitated, the Church of Scientology quit from South Park on behalf of Chef's voice actor Isaac Hayes, writing a letter that made it seem as if he had decided to quit on his own fruition. 2 years after this, Isaac Hayes was found dead next to a treadmill in his home, suffering another stroke. Because of this, many people believe Scientology was also to blame for his death, as the quote-unquote religion doesn't believe in modern medicine. So it's believed that Scientology wouldn't allow him to get the proper treatment after his stroke, and instead utilized a technique called purification rundown, which basically is an intense exercise and sauna regimen that is designed to detoxify the body. This would explain why he was found next to his treadmill. I don't have to tell you why intense exercise and hours in a sauna every day could be bad for someone recovering from a stroke. This, in combination with the refusal of proper medical attention, is why many people believe that Scientology is to blame for Isaac Hayes' death. In the game files of the Fractured But Whole, it was discovered that Tweak at one point had an ability called Snowman Flurry, but for whatever reason it was cut from the final game. Most likely this was a reference to the OG Jesus vs. Frosty short. This is a theory that in the show, Kenny and Jesus are somehow connected, because after Jesus is killed in Iraq in Red Sleigh Down, Kenny is suddenly revived at the end of the episode after being dead the entire season. After someone asked about this in the South Park Studios FAQ, they were met with a response claiming that this was no coincidence. However, due to the recent Kenny and Cthulhu storyline, I think it probably doesn't apply anymore. In an early build of the Stick of Truth, if you went into the boys' bathroom, near one of the toilets was a heart with Cartman plus Kyle inscribed into it. It didn't end up in the final version of the game, and was likely removed due to the fact that the Sparkle Sunshine Club was put in the girls' bathroom. However, it does make you wonder what exactly they meant by this. I think most likely it's a reference to the episode Cartman Finds Love, which was in production at the time they were working on this game, but who knows, maybe Kaiman is canon. On Halloween of 1998, there was a short South Park Flash animation that was released onto Comedy Central's website. It was eventually removed from the website and thought to have been lost to time. That is until it was uploaded to YouTube in 2015 by a channel called Manus. The short animation includes Kenny dying and Cartman eating too much candy corn and throwing up. For those who don't know, the episode Pip is a parody of Great Expectations. If you've read the comment section on my ranking video, you definitely know that. But it was originally meant to be a musical, but was scrapped because Matt and Trey felt it would be quote-unquote too formulaic. The episode actually had a lot of different drafts written, so it wasn't only meant to be a musical, but personally I think it's a shame because I think that would have added at least something interesting to such a painfully boring episode. So there was a man named Jason who worked on the Fractured But Whole. I believe it was Jason Schroeder who was the senior producer. When doing research for the game and looking up references for Tweak, he came across a bunch of art depicting Craig and Tweak romantically, which he decided to show to Matt and Trey. Ultimately, this ended up leading to Matt and Trey making Craig and Tweak an official couple. So there's an actual peer-reviewed research paper that argues that young fans of South Park still draw the messages from the show, and they attempt to figure out exactly what types of messages young people are drawing from the show by analyzing fan fictions and extracting it from them. It analyzes several categories such as sexuality, family dynamics, gender, and education, and how these elements might factor into how fans relate to and portray the characters in their fanfics. I think this is super interesting. For the 1998 American Comedy Awards, Matt Stone and Trey Parker created a short for the opening, including Cartman complaining about not getting nominated for a single award and Kenny dying while trying to get the signal back on their TV. Play by Play is a company that makes plushies, and they're not a very well documented company, and because of this, they're known for making some very strange bootleg South Park plushies. So it's pretty well known that regions like Europe and Australia have a lot stricter regulations on what their media can say. Because of this, when the Stick of Truth was released in these regions, there was a lot that was censored and cut out. Mainly the alien probing scenes and abortion clinic scenes, and this led to a lot of mini games being cut out. The only good thing is that they did have these funny little splash screens to replace it, but that's about it. There was also some censoring that was specific to Germany, and if you've played the Stick of Truth, I think you can probably guess what aspects of that game Germany wasn't very happy about. You know, the Atzine stuff. Also, the ESRB dialogue in the abortion clinic is different based on what region your game is from. This is one that I was not familiar with before starting this Iceberg, and now that I am, I kinda wish I wasn't. The idea behind the aristocrats is that it's a joke that has been told by stand-up comedians since the 1800s, and the idea behind the joke is that it's supposed to be as offensive and disgusting as possible, basically just trying to get laughs from shock value. It's sort of become more of a rite of passage among stand-up comedians today, where older established stand-up comedians encourage newer comedians to do the joke, basically as a form of hazing and a rite of passage. South Park did their own rendition of the joke for a 2005 documentary about the joke, and Jesus Christ does it go everywhere you did not ask it to. I'm not going to play it here as the video will probably get age restricted, but you can find it on YouTube very easily. The joke is basically just the plot of a Serbian film, so if that sounds interesting to you, go check it out and don't say I didn't warn you. Trey Parker alone has also done the joke a couple times, once for a film that was called Tales from the Crapper, and the second being for a comedy publication site for the different films Matt and Trey has produced.
Jesus, that's a hell of an act. What do you call it? And the father says, the aristocrats.
This refers to a special intro that was played when the show was broadcasted on non-Comedy Central channels. The episodes were much more heavily censored and changed to meet the standards of those channels, but honestly, this is one of the coolest intros in my opinion, as it basically crams every single episode of the show up until that point into one intro, and I kinda wish they kept this style into the future because it's super fun to try to catch all the references. In the episode Cartman Sucks, Cartman presents a picture to the class of Butter's wiener in his mouth. They never show the uncensored picture, thankfully, but it is rumored to exist out there somewhere. And after some research, I found a picture that shows more, but obviously doesn't actually show anything NSFW, but I also have no clue where this picture actually came from, so I really don't know. Here's to hoping that the picture doesn't actually exist and that the FBI doesn't come knocking on my door after researching this.
FBI, open up!
This is a reference to an interview where Trey Parker claims that if you look close enough at the bus stop in one episode, you can see Stan and Wendy having sex behind a tree. This is the exact quote from Matt and Trey. I honestly don't really believe this because I don't think anyone's actually found it, and I really just think that this was an elaborate troll by them to get people to waste their life looking for it. In 1999, at least according to this article, the eBay listing says 1997, but the condom brand Condomania partnered with South Park to make condoms themed to the show. It includes the 4 main boys and Chef, and they are apparently incredibly hard to find based on the price of this Wikipedia listing. This is just a reference to an artist on the staff who apparently created art that was considered too raunchy to show during the airing of Tweak X Craig. In the YouTube video for the song Kyle's Mom's a Bitch from the original channel, it has a couple of unused lyrics when you turn on closed captions. For example, if you ask anything of her, she's a bitch. Many people believe that this is probably just because of an error when finalizing the script. They probably made the captions before the script was finalized and they just didn't change it, so yeah. So when I was researching this, I literally could not find anything on this. I had no clue, but luckily, as I mentioned, I was in contact with the people that made this Iceberg, and they claim that in the South Park FAQ section, that when someone asked what the boys' middle names are, they said that they were all Tiberius. So yeah, I guess you can just take my word for it. So in the Fractured But Whole, you get to choose what classes you want to play as, and this one was one that was just cut from the final version of the game. It likely would have been a magician type class with ghostly and portal powers. You can see a prototype of the costume, and the costume was actually reused as the arcane outfit. So in the Stick of Truth, there's an unused redesign of City Walk, where for some reason they made it red. It's likely because it was one of the first buildings that they decorated in the game, so yeah, that's probably why. Some more cut content from the Stick of Truth, but Paris Hilton was apparently meant to be a boss at one point. She was written out due to the censorship being harsher in different regions though. She apparently had a tack called Vag Blast, which I can only imagine what that looked like. April Stewart is the woman who does most of the voices of the female characters in the show, and in a now deleted tweet during the airing of Going Native, she was made aware of the ship between Kenny and Butters, more commonly referred to as Bunny, during her interaction with fans on Twitter. The original tweet apparently included her asking, "What is this bunny in my timeline?" to her South Park fans, to which someone responded and harassed the fandom, to which she responded and said, "Don't feel horrible, please. You are all expressing your creativity in your own ways. It may not be for everyone, but art rarely is." And then there was another removed reply, and then she responded, "And last time I checked, you weren't hurting anyone. We all have our own passions. I'll never judge anything that comes from your heart." So kind of wholesome, honestly. So in the Fractured But Whole, there's an artifact that you can get if you collect enough Tweak and Craig Yowie that basically is a Tweak and Craig body pillow. The artist made the image the right size to fit on a real body pillow, so because of this, later Ubisoft printed it on one and gifted it to the artist, so I think that's pretty cool. However, there are two books that have been published that are known to have been South Park fanfictions originally. Furkel is the name of the kindergarten goth kid. However, before he was officially named in the series, it was popular in the fandom to use the name Georgie in lots of fan work such as fanfiction. The origin of this name can be traced back to a MySpace account from 2005 called Kyle the Skeptic. However, this name was actually referenced in a promo for franchise prequel, where Butters is on Facebook and the name Georgie appears next to his icon. This can suggest that some of the members of the South Park studio staff were either a part of the fandom at one point or are in the know of the fandom knowledge. This is further supported in the episode Put It Down when it's revealed that Craig's room is actually space themed, which was commonly believed in the fandom before it was revealed. So weirdly enough, Heidi's parents have changed 4 different times throughout the show. In the episode Probably, her father dies only to be shown alive again in Helen Keller the Musical. In Margarine, she has a completely different set of parents, and then again, in Cartoon Wars, she has a different set of parents. Then in Proper Condom Use, she has another different set of parents, and these ones seem to be her permanent ones. Episode 5 of Season 8 was originally named and advertised as The Return of Lemmywinks. When the episode was released, it opened with a disclaimer reading, quote, "Due to this week's tragic events in Hawaii, the Lemmywinks episode of South Park will not be shown tonight. Instead, we present the all-new and slightly better episode, Awesemo." So there actually weren't any tragic events that happened in Hawaii leading up to the release of this episode. More likely, they probably just changed their mind last second, as Trey Parker is known to do that. Luckily, they made Awesemo, which is one of my favorite episodes. It wouldn't be until 7 years later that Lemmywinks would actually return in the episode Bass to Mouth. So this is in reference to another group of weird bootleg South Park plushies, and these ones are even more bizarre. Like, I don't even know what they were thinking with these ones. Like, the colors are just completely wrong, and I don't know. I just don't understand this. Inside the game files of the Stick of Truth, there exists an image of a throwable item entitled Pip's Skull, which is wearing Pip's trademark hat and bow tie. It was unknown as to what it would be used for and why it was cut from the game, and this is a reference to the fact that Pip was killed in the episode 201. In the earliest script available for South Park Bigger, Longer, and Uncut, instead of "There's the Girl That I Like," Stan sings lyrics obviously intended to be paired / based off of the song I Remember When.
I remember when we were so in love, the moments that we shared were timeless.
This is in reference to the first episode of a cartoon created by Slim Shady, also known as Eminem. Basically, him and his friends end up in South Park and meet the boys, Chef, and Leanne. From here, it kind of devolves into gross out, offensive humor for shock value. Ironically, this is similar to Eminem's music at the time, but it does not come across nearly as well in cartoon form, I will say that.
There she is, Windy Testicle Burger. Look at those long legs, those curves.
Flower is a character that can be seen in the background throughout Bigger, Longer, and Uncut. Supposedly, she was supposed to be an important character in the movie, including being a mole for Mothers Against Canada and hacking a computer to get Kenny into heaven. The truth behind this is questionable at best, as it's never really been proven, but many people believe it. As I mentioned before, South Park would often be syndicated and broadcasted on other channels. Because of this, many episodes contained edited and censored parts. There are tons of examples of this, so I'm not going to go into depth, but mostly it just ended up being a lot of blurring and censoring. Much is a Canadian TV channel and streaming service, and it appears to be the channel that South Park airs on in Canada. I don't know for sure because I'm not Canadian, but it seems that way. They ran an ad campaign in 2013 in which they basically created a Canadian knockoff South Park called North Park, and by the end of the commercial, it would cut to the boys reacting in disgust to the idea of the show. Then it would cut to a screen that reads, "There's only one South Park and it's only on Much." I found a total of 5 of these ads on YouTube, but there may have been more, I can't be sure.
Hey, look! I found a wallet! There's $1,000 in it!
That's right, Jean-Luc. That's exactly what we're gonna do.
Once again, this supposedly arises from the now deleted South Park FAQ, but there's no sources for this, so you're just gonna have to take my word for it. But basically, someone asked about Pip, and they responded saying that Pip was sold to a Dutch shoemaker for unknown reasons. He now lives in a small cheese-making community where he goes by the name Pip Leota. So yeah, as I mentioned, there's not any sources for this, but maybe it's true. This comes again from the old South Park Studios FAQ page, and someone asked a question about Kyle's parents and how they had the same last name even before they were married. The person over at South Park Studios answering these questions responded and said that they were actually related, and that they didn't find out they were related until after they were married, and this is why they moved from New Jersey to South Park. However, they ended the post by saying JK, so obviously this isn't true. So there was a game called South Park Let's Go Defense Play that was exclusive to Xbox Live on the Xbox 360. To reward the people playing the game the most, they decided to give 10 South Park themed Xbox 360s to the people with the 10 highest scores in the game. Apparently, South Park Studios also has one of these South Park themed Xboxes, and there are only 10 known to exist. In the episode Gnomes, Tweek's parents claim that he has ADD, and according to a statement from the official South Park website, he does indeed have ADD, along with, quote, several other learning disabilities. This makes sense, as Tweek has been shown to have a lot of anxiety and social issues, though I'm sure that the meth-laced coffee his parents give him probably doesn't help with that. In 1998, South Park partnered with the company Comic Images to produce a set of trading cards. This includes images from season 1 of the show and some character and episode summaries. You can find them on collectible websites and eBay. Okay, so I'm currently editing this video at 3 a.m. and I just realized that I didn't record this part, so basically this is a reference to some promo images for the episodes Ginger Kids and South Park is Gay, both of which I was told I would find by asking a certain source, but like I said, it's 3 a.m. and I need to have this video done by tomorrow, so I'll just describe them. So the promo image from South Park is Gay is a picture of Mr. Slave and Mr. Mackey interacting with each other, and the one from Ginger Kids is Cartman at the pool with some Ginger Kids, so yeah. In the early 2000s, there was a lot of ambiguity in the plush collecting form for South Park. As I mentioned before, there were those weird knockoff plushes, so there was just a lot of confusion in the scene in general. Because of this, there was rumored to be a Damien plush, and a lot of people even still believe it today. Of course, there was never any Damien plush that was actually released, it's just a rumor. In a short promo that was played on Comedy Central for season 18 of South Park, there's a short clip of Cartman saying, quote unquote, "I'm attracted to boys." He's donning his ribbon that was from the Sissy, so it clearly is from that episode. This is most likely just a placeholder for the ad while they worked on the actual script for the episode. But who knows, maybe Kaiman is real.
I'm attracted to boys. I'm gonna piss in their gluten-free...
In 2000, there were ads in a magazine and pictures for a large set of South Park figurines that were supposed to be released by McFarlane. It's unknown whatever happened to these figurines, but they were never released. It's unfortunate because I think these look really good. This is in reference to the song by the same name from the season 1 episode Mr. Hanky the Christmas Pooh. Before Isaac Hayes recorded his version, there was a complete version that was recorded by Trey Parker, which was likely meant to be a demo. On the official soundtrack for South Park Bigger, Longer, and Uncut, there are songs that are not in the movie, as well as covers and remixes of those songs that are in the movie. There is a rare version of the album called the Complete Motion Picture Soundtrack that has all the songs and different mixes and the original score, but it's basically impossible to come by. In the same old interview in which Trey Parker was asked which kid is most likely to be gay, he was also asked which kid is most likely to become a serial killer. He responded with, quote, "It's so obvious to say Cartman, but oh, it's definitely Kenny." It makes you wonder what kind of evil is hiding under that hood. Promo records were normally given to store retailers, reviewers, and DJs to promote the singles and the albums from South Park. They often came in different mixes, like the instrumentals were different or the crowd noises were reduced. Some examples include Chef and Friends, Chocolate Salty Balls the single, Mr. Hanky the Christmas Pooh, Mr. Hanky's Christmas Classics, and etc. TMOSE stands for the most offensive song ever, and it's a song from Mr. Hanky's Christmas Classics. In the final version, Kenny sings all the quote-unquote offensive parts, so it's hard to know exactly what's being said. There is an earlier version, though, where Mr. Hanky sings the entire song, and this was likely because Trey was using it as a guide vocal for when Matt sang as Kenny. Obviously, with this version, it's a lot clearer what's being said. It's really not that offensive, but obviously I can't play it here, so you can just go check it out if you want. This is a reference to another old interview that Trey did, and the interviewer asked him where Dr. Mephisto is since he hasn't been on the show in a very long time. Trey responds that Mephisto has been working hard in his genetic engineering lab. I mean, where do you think Man Bear Pig came from? So he's obviously hinting that Man Bear Pig was created by Dr. Mephisto. However, in later seasons, it was revealed that Man Bear Pig is a demon, so unless he has some sort of omnipotence, I think this probably doesn't apply anymore. Many people believe that Stan is Scottish because of a quote from the announcer in the video game Chef's Love Shack when Stan is introduced. Quote, "Stan has descended from the Marsh clan who ruled the Scottish Highlands with an iron fist, brutalizing all who dared challenge their bloodthirsty reign of terror."
Stan is descended from the Marsh clan who ruled the Scottish Highlands with an iron fist, brutalizing all who dared challenge their bloodthirsty reign of terror. Stan likes playing with his choo-choo.
So there exists an official South Park plush that has the body shape of Cartman, but the clothes of Stan. And there are only 2 known to exist in the entire world, both of which are owned by collectors. According to one of the collectors, it was purchased in a Spencer's in 1998, And it's actually not some kind of error at the factory, as the tags contain style numbers for the characters, and this one has a different one from the regular Cartman plush. So no one really knows why or how this plush was created, but I think most likely it's destined to remain a mystery. Okay, this one is really dark, so strap in. This refers to the real-life case of a 12-year-old boy from Maryland who unfortunately committed suicide. He left behind a suicide note, and according to the police, the child tells his parents to watch South Park to learn why he did it. The note also apparently mentioned Kenny, though we can't know for sure what the note said as it was never released to the public. From the little I could find, it also doesn't appear that a motive for the act was ever discovered. It is speculated that the kid pointed towards Kenny because he's suggesting that nobody understood him, just as nobody understands Kenny. However, this is a complete speculation. According to one article, there were statements by children's television activists warning of the dangers of exposing your children to the wrong thing on television, and schools in Texas and Georgia even banned students from wearing any clothing depicting South Park characters, citing concerns over violence depicted in the show. Personally, I believe this situation might have even played into the plot of Bigger, Longer, and Uncut, as in the show, kids are banned from wearing Terrence and Phillip merch to school. Wow, talk about a bummer of an ending. Anyways, that was the ultimate South Park Iceberg. Thank you guys so much for watching. I put a lot of time into this, so if you liked it, go ahead and drop a like and maybe even subscribe. You know, you could do that. I'd appreciate it. All of my links should be in the description below. I got a Patreon you can check out if you want. I have a Discord server, and you can go ahead and follow me on Twitter. So yeah, I guess that's it, guys. Thank you again for watching, and I will see you guys next time. Later.